I want to bring about my ideas behind the assassination attempt of Donald Trump on July 13th. The timing of it, what was supposed to happen, and what was supposed to follow as a result of this. So, number one, Donald Trump is more popular than ever. And the deep state is not confident enough in their election rigging abilities and are not going to allow it just to, by fate, by chance, oh, maybe we'll be able to rig it, maybe not. So they had to go for the kill from that point alone, number one. Okay? Number two, you have the situation where the country is collapsing all around us. We see it. Crime, okay, inflation, the devaluation of currency, the economy is struggling and collapsing. You have transgenderism, mental illness, you have cultural factors that people are not happy about, and so many other issues that are truly destroying our nation. I mean, the infrastructure, okay, so many different things that people are very upset about. Property taxes, just to name a few. So I feel like that's waking people up to truly, to join us in our movement, to save our country, to make America great again, to save the Republic. And now I want to go on to the assassination attempt. Of course, we see all the information. I don't want to go through everything and all the details as to how he was shot, the patsy, okay, was he working with the feds? I mean, obviously he was working with the feds. Obviously the FBI groomed him and the CIA, and they purposely put the stage in that area all along the rooftops, not in the airfield behind Trump over there, and not in a secure area. They purposely allowed him to get on stage. They trained him. They gave him all the equipment that he needed and so on and so forth. Positioned him in the perfect position. Okay? Didn't secure the water tower, didn't secure the rooftop. All of that was done on purpose, and I don't need to explain it because we already see all the first-hand footage from the Trump supporters that were there at the rally, as well as just all the testimony that's coming out and so on and so forth. What I want to say is the timing of this. Think about it. This rally happened 2 days before the RNC, okay? And why did they want to kill Trump in this moment? And I personally believe it was done as a way to cause a crisis via the RNC. Because as the rhinos are losing power and they're unfavorable, nobody likes them anymore. Nobody likes the McCains and the Bushes and the Clintons and so on and so forth. Why would they make their move right before the RNC? And why did they run Nikki Haley in the primaries till the very fucking end? Why? Why did they do that? Even though she lost Iowa, she lost Texas, she lost everywhere. Why did they, even in South Carolina she lost. Why did they run her until she won New Hampshire? I believe it was New Hampshire. And it was because she needed to have delegates. She needed to be the only candidate with delegates. Because think about this situation. Trump dies 2 days before the RNC. Our party, our movement has no leader, has no beachhead. And now you come into the RNC, there's a crisis. Who do we elect as the presidential nominee? Okay, we were going with Donald Trump, but now we have to pick somebody else. The primaries are over. We can't vote for somebody. Who else would it be? Oh, who else has delegates? Oh, legally, I guess Nikki Haley's supposed to just be given the nomination because she's the only other individual with delegates. So that was the play in order to, steal the party from Donald Trump and our movement and our people and install Nikki Haley. Now think about Nikki Haley. What is she? A rhino, globalist, pro-war, Henry Kissinger's little mentor. She's pro-Ukraine and the escalation of war against Vladimir Putin. Okay, she's pro-war, or at least pro-arming Taiwan. But she's also pro-Israel and pro-war against Iran. Okay? And that's a key in this whole equation. I think that's a very key point. So, you have a situation where the RNC is in a crisis, and our president's head gets blown off on live television. You have, Corey Mills, taking that billion-dollar photo of Trump's head exploding, plastered all over mainstream news media. All the leftists on X and everywhere else would be laughing at us. Oh, look at our president killed. And it would cause an infuriation within our people, within our party. And they would bait us into committing violence because of this. So, also, during this time period, you have Bibi Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, coming to the United States, coming to Congress. And mind you, he canceled his trip and then rescheduled it till next week. But why did he cancel it? He was supposed to come 2 or 3 days after Trump got assassinated to be in front of Congress. And what happened 2 days after the assassination attempt, or maybe a day after? What did the U.S. intelligence services say about the assassination of Donald Trump? That Iran was behind it, that Iran had a plot against the president. Because, of course, CIA Director Mike Pompeo set Trump up during his first presidential term for bombing Soleimani and murdering him and killing him. And whether that was right or wrong, it's not up for my debate, but it was done on purpose in order to have an excuse later down the line if they ever need to kill Trump, that, hey, we killed them because, we didn't kill him. Iran killed them because Trump one time killed their top general. Okay? And so that was their little ace in the hole for their excuse to assassinate Trump. Okay? And I feel like they had to release that information because too many people were already linking the dots and saying, like, oh, it was the deep state. But via plausible deniability, oh, the FBI's investigation, they could have just scurried around it if Trump was actually dead and said, well, it was Iran, but this, and whether all of us conspiracy theorists would say no, but this and XYZ, they would have just plausibly denied everything and said, no, it was Iran. Okay? So think about this. Israel is currently at war with Hamas. Okay? And trust me, I do not support either side in this conflict. Okay? But Israel is at war at Hamas. And who is Hamas backed by? The Iranians. Who else are they backed by? The Hezbollah, which is funded and backed by Iran. Okay? And so you would have a situation in our country, with all the left-wing groups, Antifa and so on, protesting in these college campuses, already getting organized, to protest, to cause civil unrest, and almost hyping up this Israeli war conflict. Like the real genocide is not in Israel. It's not happening in Palestine. The real genocide is happening in Ukraine, in my personal opinion. Like by a factor of 100, if not 1,000. There's no comparison. But they're hyping up this Israel-Hamas war on purpose to bait all the normie, DNC, Democratic kind of liberal voters to be angry by this. Okay, even though they have nothing aligned in any type of values with Palestine. But I digress. That doesn't really matter. So as they're organizing, protests on the ground in the months leading up to this, on university campuses, all this, anti-Semitism, blah, 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 whatever. Netanyahu would land in 2 days after Trump's assassination, 3 days after, whatever it was, and address Congress. And what would have his message been? Oh, we are at war against Hamas, and it's being funded by Hezbollah, by Iran. And Hezbollah in Lebanon and so on are escalating this conflict, and we need the United States to back us. At the same time, the Israelis would bomb, let's say, Iran, and there would be a rocket exchange, how there was, I don't know, maybe half a year ago, 6 months ago, again, okay? And the United States being a full, permanent supporter an ally of Israel, we would be forced to go into this conflict. Okay? So do you see how this already is starting to smell very fishy? And the U.S. intelligence service has already said, oh, no, it was the Iranians that was behind the assassination attempt. Okay? So it would be perfect timing with everything. Now, think about this. Also, who else signed a military agreement like a year ago with the Iranian military? And they promised full support, and out of good faith they exchanged military technology. The Iranians gave them drones. This country gave them, fighter jets, and so on and so forth. The Russian Federation Okay? And if you look at old Cold War, you know, World War hypothetical invasion plans of the Soviet Union, you knew that, like, you know, one of the beachheads was obviously up from, you know, Finland, also through Europe via Poland, but also through Ukraine and the southern border through the Caspian Sea in from Iran. Okay? And as Russia is getting stronger and their economy is developing more into a war economy, and as they're becoming more and more successful in this war, okay, as the deep state starts losing traction, losing power, the Ukrainians are just losing so many men daily that their military is literally in shambles. It's falling apart. It's on the brink of collapse, really. Without NATO, it would have already collapsed. So you have this situation. Let me go back to the Israel-Palestine war. You would have a situation where Netanyahu comes to Congress, says, hey, well, listen, we need more funding. We need more weapons. This war is being escalated via Iran. At the same time, Iran officially, according to our intelligence services, killed our former president. And Netanyahu would say, listen, these people are terrorists, okay, and we need to declare war on them. So Congress would already have the votes. Biden would support it. You would have the deep state supporting it. You'd have the rhinos, and you'd have the Democrats all supporting this proposition of, what a great idea, let's go to war with Iran. And why? Also, because it's about strategically weakening Russia. It's about taking down Vladimir Putin, because that's the big ace, that's the big kind of canary in the coal mine to the deep state's plot against, you know, depopulation and world tyranny is Putin. He's the biggest, the strongest leader standing up to all this on the international scale. So, I also want to bring about a very important point here. So you'd have all this happening, and if the United States Congress did declare war on Iran, what would happen in our country? You'd have the millions of illegal military-age men that came through our border purposely by the deep state, by the CIA, that were organized into gangs, okay, that were all given housing, welfare, and so on and so forth, just so they could kind of be kept under the rug and so they don't cause any problems now. But when it truly came time to start, you know, causing domestic terror, they would be ready on a moment's notice. This is ISIS, Hezbollah. And whether the deep state controlled them directly or indirectly, they would all be fueled and committed to doing these type of things because their ideology is against the Israelis, okay? And so you could just see how this is all panning out. And think about this. The election, it's an election season, right? And you have literally dozens of millions of military-aged men just waiting in our country. Nobody knows where they're at, who's funding them, what kind of stuff they're getting. You never know. But they could be getting trained, ready, pre-positioned, you know, let's say warehouses full of equipment, so that, let's say, in October, which would be our Red October surprise, right as Donald Trump, not Donald Trump at this moment, but right as the United States declares war on Israel, they would unleash domestic terror operations within our own country, and they would start blowing up bridges, slowing down traffic all over the East Coast, let's say as an example, famous bridges, okay? You would have, let's say like a truck bomb blowing up a bridge, taking down the bridge. You would have that going on. You would have the situation of, explosive blowing up, transformers and domestic U.S. energy production facilities, electricity plants, the power grid, the internet, which wouldn't be done by them, directly. It would be really by the deep state, but they would be indirectly using these groups to commit these type of terrorist attacks. But let's say, for example, we go even further. As this is all happening, you have voting centers, being blown up, or whatever, school shootings, mass shootings at churches. You never know what the play is, okay? But there would be domestic terror, and it would be organized. So it wouldn't just be a separate incident. It would go all over the country. And right before this type of operation would happen, you know what there would be? there would be liberal Antifa-led protests all across the country. A Black Lives Matter 2.0, okay? Stretching the police force thin, stretching all their resources thin, because people, police officers would be too focused in the downtown areas protecting businesses, but then all the critical infrastructure would be open targets. And so all of this would have been a plan for chaos, and also a way to bait the conservatives, because the conservative right wing would be like, fuck, dude, we don't want our country being blown up. We don't want all this stuff going on. The police needs help. We're going to go out there and help them. And that's exactly what they would want. They would want us to be baited out into a civil war, which is why they pre-programmed all of us with all these movies like Leave the World Behind and so on and so forth, for a domestic U.S. civil war in the modern sense, with modern weapons. And so what would be the ultimate outcome of all this? You would have Nikki Haley, Kamala Harris running as nominees for our presidential election, which wouldn't even matter, okay? Because either way, it's the same bird, okay? Just different feathers, but it's the same bird. They're the same people. They're all under the same leadership, okay? Then you would have the situation where the elections would have to be suspended due to national emergencies. Our infrastructure would be down. People would, everything would be down. Our computer systems would be down. Our power would be down. Our homes would not be able to be turned on if you were not at least prepared somewhat with, let's say, generators and whatever. But majority of U.S. cities would be down in power. And what would that cause? A postponement of U.S. elections, just how President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky did, right? He suspended elections because of the war and blamed it all on martial law. And that's what would have been the play. And in this coup, in the suspension of elections, they would say, 2 weeks just to stop all this domestic uprising, this violence and whatever. Once we get this all under control, then we'll be able to, do our elections. But it would never come around to this. And think about it, MAGA would not have a movement. The RNC would be completely in a crisis, in shambles, okay? You'd have, Biden still in power with war, executive war powers. You'd have Congress declaring war on Iran, stupidly, in order to kind of keep fueling and throwing fuel on the fire. You'd have currency collapse and crisis. And all of this happening in an election year. And if you don't think it could have happened, or if you don't think this is what their plan was, then you're just fooling yourself. Because FBI Director Wray in Congress today literally admitted, the biggest threat he sees is organized domestic terror operations in our country via the open southern border. And he's a deep state globalist agent. He's telling all of us to our face what they're about to do. Okay, and they wanted to do it on the backdrop of Donald Trump being murdered, assassinated, on camera, okay, with all the HD photos, everything done perfectly, the way that they wanted. And I truly believe that's what the play was. And I really think that we were so close to truly a horrible outcome. And I really believe that by the grace of God, Donald Trump turned his head and even leaned a little bit to the left and dodged that bullet in that perfect moment, just the way it was supposed to happen. It's written in the stars. So I will say this, there are a lot of good people in the world, and more people are waking up, more and more people are ready for this plan, ready for this civil unrest. And so I don't think it's going to go the way that the globalists or the deep state, whatever you want to call them, are planning. But I definitely do believe that they are not going to allow this election just to go and just by chance allow it to happen, and even gamble on the prospect of letting Trump win, because if Trump